Welcome to Wealthy Mind, where we talk about all things finances, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the surprising. Hello and welcome to Wealthy Mind. I am your host, Misty Rose Gold, International Success Coach, and here at Wealthy Mind, we love to help you create and maintain a wealthy mind. Today, I have with me Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Hey, how are you?
I am great, and I'm
Great.
super excited for our conversation today. So please tell the audience your full name and what do you do?
My name is Thomas Cox, and I help business owners, investors, and high W-2 earners learn how to use the same dollar more than one time.
Say that again.
So most people take a dollar and they use it once. We help and teach people how to take the same dollar and use it 3, 4, 5 times.
Intriguing. Okay. You have me interested.
Okay.
And I'm the host. I'm like, I should
It's
know
right.
what
Oh my
this
gosh,
is,
what did
right?
you say it?
Well, you got a good hook. So I'm sure you pulled all of us in now. How do we do that?
So everything that we do, Misty, is financed. Everything, whether we borrow money from said bank or private money or whatever, or we pay
Mhm.
cash. You say, well, if we pay cash for something, it's not really financed. Well, what happens is when we pay cash is we're using the opportunity cost on earning a dollar on that said money. So everything that we do is financed. What we do is we give people a mechanism by which they can take the same dollar and use it more than one time. And we do that through what we call infinite banking, which is
Okay.
cash value whole life insurance. And so that is the tool in which we use to be able to take those dollars and use them more than one time.
All right. So whole life policy, right?
Mhm. Properly structured whole life policy. So the biggest thing is people think, well, I don't understand about whole life. Well, do you? Like there are your dad's old school whole life policy that they've paid into for 15 years, and after they pay into these policies, they can then extract cash value and use cash value 10, 15 years down the road. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
great. But
Hmm.
what we do is we've got a mechanism by which we can put money in and immediately start using that money really, really quickly. And so, in essence, Misty, what it does is it acts like a bank. So, what we're doing is we are creating a bank. So, from Denver to Birmingham to India, the number one business in all the world is banking. It always has been, it always will be. People are going to need a place to store, extract, and borrow money. We're not asking people and getting people to get away from what they're doing. We just want them to add a banking function to their life
Hmm.
and how they're doing that. So if you're a coach or if you are a roofer or if you're a dentist or you're a real estate investor, continue to do that because that's how you make your money. All we're saying is let's take back the banking function in our life so that we don't have to borrow from other people and we can take those dollars and use those dollars over and over and over again.
So explain to the audience what is a whole life policy?
Great. So most people have heard of a term policy, which is I'm going to give the insurance company said dollar amount per month, and that's going to be a life insurance policy for a certain term, 10, 20, 30 years. So that's where the
Hmm.
term policy comes in. But here's the thing, something that a lot of people don't know. 99% of term policies never get paid out because A, people don't pay them, or B, the term runs out. So if Misty were to get
Mm.
a 30-year term policy at 30 years old, it's really, really affordable. Well, if you turn 61, you have no more life insurance. because the term has run out. Okay,
Yeah.
that's term. So a whole life policy is where I'm going to pay dollars into an insurance product, and it's going to give me a guaranteed death benefit no matter what. Now, there are certain restrictions around that. We'll say, well, how long do I have to pay it, Thomas? Well, that all depends. IRS, insurance companies said there's a 7 year limit. I got to pay into certain policies for at least 7 years in order to get the financial benefits and the death benefits. Because what happens after 7 years, I'm getting really probably too far in the weeds, is what happens after 7 years is the policy will take care of itself and it will pay it through dividends and things like that. So all I'm saying is I pay into a whole life policy, and no matter how long I live, I've got a death benefit when I die. No matter how, if I live to 70 or 110, I've got a death benefit because it's a whole life policy. Now, here's the thing,
Hmm.
they're more expensive.
Okay.
It's like renting a car or buying a car. Which one's more expensive? Buying a car is more expensive. So, in essence, with term insurance, we're renting insurance. With whole life, we're buying it.
Okay. Excellent. So, how do we use this whole life policy? I love that it's going to be there no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's a little bit more expensive.
Yep.
How do we use it to use our dollars more than once?
It's a great question. So what we do is we structure these policies to where, so you're going to hear me say this a bunch, properly structured. We have to structure it in the correct way. So Rick, that runs a state farm agency down the road, is not going to be able to give you the same policy that we can create, because the state farm policy or the alpha policy or the farm bureau policy is not, they're not structured the same way. It's a different product. And
Mm,
so what we do is, let's just use Misty for an example. So Misty, we're going to get you some a whole life policy, but we're going to get you as little a death benefit as we possibly can. Okay. But then what we're going to do is we're going to put a lot more cash into that policy. So we're going to buy a little bit of death benefit, but then we're going to load more cash into the policy. What does that look like? So we're going to have a death benefit, but then I'm going to give the insurance company more cash on top of that. So in essence, the simple version is I'm going to use the insurance's back office as my bank. So I'm going to load money into this policy, and then I'm going to use money in and out of that policy as I see fit. Okay. But where a bank is going to give you a 0.5% interest on the dollars, and then they're going to take the money and loan it out 9 times, the insurance company on the whole life policy is going to give you a guaranteed, it depends, anywhere from 3.5 to 5.5%. The ones we work with give you about a 4% guaranteed rate. So it's not going
hmm
to go up and down with interest rates. You're going to get a 4% guaranteed rate on growth. Okay.
Okay.
That's the great thing. The other key, Misty, for everybody that's listening is we only want to use mutual insurance companies. So there's
Mm,
a stock insurance company, and then there's a mutual insurance company.
hmm
Okay. What's the difference? The difference is the insurance company of a stock insurance company, they're worried about the stock price. They want to please their investors. Okay.
hmm
A mutual insurance company is owned by you and me. It is owned by the policy owners. So in a mutual insurance company, they give what they call a dividend. And you know what a dividend is. It's a return of profits back to the owners in essence.
hmm
So with a dividend paying whole life policy, you get to share in the profits of the insurance company. Okay. So they're going to give you a guaranteed 4% rate, but then they're also going to give a dividend on top of that. That dividend is anywhere between a quarter of a point and 3/4 of a point. Let's just call it half a percentage point. And you say, well, that's not guaranteed. No, it's not guaranteed, but they paid it out for over 130 years in most insurance companies. So we're getting guaranteed 4%, but then we're also getting a dividend. But you and I both know, because we understand the market, that the longer we hold a stock or longer we hold a policy, the bigger the dividend gets over time. And so we're going to
hmm
get, this is kind of like a whole life cash value whole life policy is kind of like wine. Wine's really, really good when you first get it, but it gets so much better over time because it ages. It's the same thing with this policy. It gets better and better and better over time because this is a long-term play.
I like how you explain that. It's like a fine wine.
That's right.
Wonderful. So What can you explain to the person that doesn't know what we're talking about? Like,
Yeah.
is there anything that you can fill in the gaps for people that are just like, okay, cool. Whole life. That means I have a life insurance policy for life.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to make approximately 4% return on the money I put in instead of 1% in my savings account. Okay,
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
I'm going to get some dividends on top of that, hopefully.
Yep.
But what might they be missing that they
Yep.
don't quite understand?
Two things. Number one, any growth in that policy is tax free. So all the growth in that policy is
Mm-hmm.
going to be tax free. So let's just take, for example, that savings account you just mentioned. So
Mm-hmm.
Misty's going to get 1% growth. Say you've got $100,000 in there and you get 1% growth. You make $1,000. Not really, because you're going to get a 1099 at the end of the year and you're going to take taxes out of that $1,000 that you got growth on. Okay. Well, with these policies, you get the guaranteed 4% plus a dividend, and any of that growth in that policy is tax free. Why? Because it's an insurance product. It's insurance. It's not considered an investment. Okay.
Okay.
That's the first thing. The second thing is we're not using this policy for rate of return because here's the thing. You're sitting there going, 4% is not too bad. And it's not great. It's competitive, but it's not great because these are our savings dollars. If I want to go make a truckload of money, I can put it in private equity. I can put it in one of your clients' businesses. I can put it in the market even. But what we're doing, these are our safe dollars. These are our savings dollars. So these are where we're gonna keep safe money.
Mm-hmm.
The key is this: what am I taking this money and going to do with it? So
Mm.
so so let me give you an example. So I'll probably
Mm-hmm.
tell stories throughout this process.
'Cause I have a question straight away that fits my world. So,
Gotcha. So let me give you an example from real life. Okay, so I have about $300,000 of cash value in my policy.
mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a guy down the road named Travis, and I loaned Travis $200,000 because he's a house flipper. Okay, so I've got $300,000 in my policy. I'm going to loan Travis $200,000. He's going to take that money and do whatever he does with it, flip the house. He's going to pay me 15% for that money. Okay.
Okay.
I'm in essence, I'm letting him do this. This is my investment. I'm taking the money, I'm investing it over here in Travis. He's going to give me 30 grand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the 30 grand. That's my profit. I'm going to take, when he gives me my $200,000 back plus the 30, I'm going to put the money back in my policy. Okay. Just like I would a bank. But here's the key, Misty. If I had a savings account with $300,000 in, I took $200,000 out and gave it to Travis, how much interest am I earning over here in my savings account if I give him 200,000? Only own $100,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in these whole life policies, I'm not extracting the money. I'm borrowing the money. So I got $300,000 in my policy that's growing at 4% plus a dividend. I'm going to let Travis borrow 200. My money's still growing at 300, Misty. Why? Because I borrowed the money. I didn't extract the money.
Okay.
So my money's working at 4% plus a dividend over here. And then I also gave it another job.
Okay.
So this is what we talked about at the beginning of the show, Misty,
Mm-hmm.
is the $300,000 is growing. I'm going to give it another job over here and it's going to grow at 15% over here. So I'm growing at 4, I'm growing at 15 over here. So my money's working here and my money's working here. So we got,
Okay.
I'm giving your dollars more than one job.
The math is starting the math.
Mhm.
This is good. All right,
Yep.
cool. Okay. The math is starting the math. All right. Now, how do we use this for our exit strategies?
So I'm gonna give you a great example. So there's a guy in Texas that just sold his outdoor hardscape slash pool business. So he installs pools and does hardscapes for nicer homes in the state of Texas. So he did an exit. So you and I both know that most business owners, when they exit, they're either going to A, retire, but B, when they retire, they typically get tired of playing golf and watching grandkids. So what do they then go do? They
Start
then
another
go and do,
business.
they go do something else. So they're going to go do something else. And when they do said other thing, they're going to need something to do. Okay, so how do we use infinite banking in exiting? So this is where we advise. So this guy's got I'm just tell you, he got $1 million.
Hmm.
He got $100,000 on the front end, and then the
Hmm.
guy's going to pay him 250 per year for the next 4 years.
Nice. Okay.
Okay. So what do we do with the money? So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of that 250 every year and we're going to put it into a policy. Well,
Mm.
why is that? Well, number one, it's going to allow him to have an ever growing, ever compounding dollar for the rest of
Hmm.
his life. Number one.
Hmm.
Number two, it's going to give him a death benefit. But again, that's kind of a tertiary benefit. I mean, you
Sure.
get a death benefit, but it's not really why we're doing this. I
Hmm.
mean, we're doing this to build a bank.
Hmm.
That's the second reason. The third reason is at some point, he's going to need that cash to do something: buy a home, start another business, send a grandkid through college, send a kid through college. I don't know. So we're going to park this money in this policy so that going back to my example, we can take this money and it can grow, but then we can also borrow and use it for other things. What is that other thing? I don't know. There's a list of 1,000 different things. So when people exit, they got to have a place to store cash. So I'm going to give you a funny example.
Mm.
So I didn't even plan on telling this story. So 2 days ago, we're coming home from Atlanta, and we live in Alabama. And we're coming home from Georgia, and Georgia has a lottery. We don't have a lottery in Alabama. And we look up at the billboard, and Tegan, my 14-year-old, goes, "Dad, 232 million bucks. What would you do if you won that?" And I go, "It's a great question." So it's really not 230,000. It's really about 150 million, 130 million. It's really about 150 million. And we started extracting that. And so I thought, just sat there and said, that's like an exit. What would you
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
if you got a windfall?
Hmm.
The number one thing is don't tell anybody because they all think that
Right?
you're rich. Number one thing is don't tell anybody.
Keep your lips sealed.
Exactly. The second thing is, where do I need to park this cash so that it can continue to grow unendingly? Number
Right.
one. And then
Right.
number two, it will allow me a way to use that thing, those dollars, at least twice, or in multiple cases in more than one time. So I
Mm.
would have parked, and not all, but a large portion of my money into some of these policies that will allow me to do anything. Well, it's not just for house flippers. It's not just for business owners. It's for anybody. I mean, this is a safer option than honestly than doing a 529 plan. How do I put money into an account and into a policy for my kids so that when they go to college, I've got 150, $200,000 to send them to college? So
Mm.
why not do that? So we could probably give 46 examples of how to use this in an exit. Um, but the number one reason, Misty, is you got to have a place to park the money when you exit. So whether
Mm.
you're 65 years old and you're going to hang it up for retirement, and you want to do a policy on yourself or a policy on a child or on your wife, or you're 35 and you just exited a roofing company because you killed it for the last 15 years, and someone's going to come buy you at a multiple of four, and you're going to get $4 million. What are you going to do with the 4 million bucks? Let's don't go spend it like a 50s gangster. Let's put it in a place that's gonna grow to the day we die. So there's
Yeah.
so many reasons where in places we can put that.
I don't think we're speaking to the people that want to go and burn through that $4 million or the 200 million that they get from the lotto, because
That's right. That's exactly right.
some people do burn through money like it's water. And
Yeah,
you know, if they want to live life on the edge like that, that's okay.
totally fine.
They can just go start another business and
That's
then
right.
exit that one and burn through that cash and
That's
go
right.
start
That's
another
exactly
one.
right. That's right. That's exactly right.
But for those people who would love to be a little bit more responsible with their money, this is the conversation for them. So, curiosity, as a business is preparing to exit, which takes about anywhere from 5 to 10 years,
Hmm.
how can we use this policy to help them in that process? Because there's a lot of scaling and growing that happens. And yeah.
The one of the first questions I get is how big or how small can the policy be? So like I do a policy on my 10-year-old for $12,000 a year. But then we've got a policy that we got doing on a guy that's has a bunch of vet clinics that's doing $3 million a year.
Hmm.
So every business, especially if you're in business and you're an owner, has to cycle through cash. So you have expenses,
Hmm.
whether that be massive amount of expenses and you've only got 15% margin, or you've got a 70% margin business where you don't have as many expenses, but you've got money flowing in and flowing out.
Hmm.
There's a portion of that money that has to go somewhere. We have to have our safe dollars. If COVID didn't teach us anything, it taught us that we have to be ready for the unexpected.
Hmm.
There's a lot of businesses, Misty, and you saw them, that went out of business because they didn't have a reserve for when the world shut down. Now, do I think the
Yes.
world's going to shut down again? No. But I also understand that crazy stuff happens to different industries.
Yeah.
Oil and gas, food, you know, software, AI. Like there's so many, we can talk for 2 hours on it. So preparing for an exit, how do I prepare myself in an allocation way of keeping money, my safe dollars in a place so that I can then use those dollars after I exit while I'm cycling through those dollars throughout the process. So a great example is this is I know that I'm going to exit in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. How do I allocate 5%, 10% of my net income or gross income into a policy for A, major expenses, B, a safety net, or C, just any kind of expense that I've got flowing through my business. Okay. I can cycle my money in and out of that process. And then what happens is when I do exit, I've got a place that I can store this money. Okay. That's the first example. The second example is this. So we've got a guy that does between $1 and $2 million a year in his policy. It's about 1.3 million. Well, he's got a massive, massive business. He's a lawyer. Well,
Mm.
what he does is he takes all of his taxes, he allocates his tax money, he puts it into an infinite banking account or a cash value life insurance policy. He knows he's going to exit this law firm and going to sell this because it's a huge, huge law firm. He's going to exit in about 5 years. So what he does is he takes anywhere right at a little over $1 million. He loads into this policy. Once he loads it into the policy, he then extracts the money out to pay his tax bill because he pays over
Mm.
$1 million in taxes a year. Okay.
Mm. Okay.
So what he's doing is he's putting the money in and taking it out, paying because it's the government's money. It's not his money.
Hmm.
So he's using their money, putting it in, and it's growing. He's taking it out, putting it in, growing, taking it out, putting it in, growing, taking it out. So when he exits and he gets, 10, 15, $20 million, whatever the number is, he gets his exit money. He then pays that debt back that he used to have to pay his taxes back. And he's got all that money sitting that's grown the whole time he's been doing preparing for the exit. So there's a number
Mm.
of different ways we can do that. That's just one of them that people typically use it with taxes.
Yeah. So, question,
Yeah.
can people use that whole life policy instead of a line of credit? So let's say that they need to go through a hiring process instead of taking out a line of credit. Can we use that whole life policy?
There's three ways that I like to leverage. Okay. And the name of the game is leverage. How can I take dollars and give them more than one job? That's the name of the game. Okay. So there's
Hmm.
three ways. Number one is you've heard it 1,000 times. There's a HELOC, home equity line of credit. My house is worth $1 million. I owe 200,000. They're going to let me borrow up to 70% of that $1 million. That's 700,000, but I got a $200,000 debt. So they're going to give me a $500,000 line of credit. Are you tracking?
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So it's a $500,000 line of credit on my home. That's one leverage. Then you've got what they call securities backed line of credit. You've heard of that? So I've got money in the market. So again, let's just say Tesla stock, Apple stock, Nvidia, Microsoft, whatever. I've got a portfolio. Let's say again, use the $1 million. I got $1 million, a $1 million portfolio. Whatever company that I have that money with, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, whoever, they will
Hmm.
give you what they call a securities backed line of credit. So I got $1 million. They'll loan you between 50 and 70% of total portfolio value. Okay.
Okay.
So 500,000 to $700,000. I can use that money in and out how I want to. That's the second way. Well, the third way is this is a cash value whole life insurance policy. So the same way I put money into my house, the same way I put money into the market, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this cash value account and I'm going to do the same thing. So whatever my cash value is, I can pull out, 95% of whatever that cash value is that I've built up in that account. So in my securities backed line of credit, where I put the money in the market, where my Apple stock and my Microsoft stock is,
Mm-hmm.
I can borrow from that. Even though the stock continues to grow, I can borrow
Mm-hmm.
from that. That's the way. The same thing with my infinite banking or my cash value life insurance policy. I got $300,000, $400,000 in that account. I can borrow and use that money to go do something else, but it's still growing at the top amount. Okay. My house is worth $1 million. Just because I borrow $300,000 to go do an investment doesn't mean the value of my house goes down, does it? No.
No.
So my value of my house is still continuing to grow. I'm taking $300,000 and going and deploying it somewhere else. So those are the three ways we can use leverage. One of them is not is safe. Securities backed line of credit. The market crashes by 20%. You could be in trouble. You could.
Mm-hmm.
Value of your house 2008. Value of your house dips 20%. Not very likely, but like it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my insurance policy, it's not going anywhere. Okay. There's no way it can ever go down because it's guaranteed to grow at 4%.
The gross value does not change.
Gross value does not change. It
That's
always continues
amazing.
to grow. Yeah.
I love the comparison between a house. People can understand that and
Yeah.
conceptualize it, right? So it helps my brain
Yeah.
to understand even better. Like, yeah, the value of the house doesn't go down if it doesn't go down if you borrow against it, right?
It's the
It's
same way with
this
this.
it's the same with the whole life
Yeah.
policy. So that's a brilliant way to explain it. Um, I have been around the whole life policies a lot more than the general public, but again, it's always best to simplify it in my mind. Like, how do we use this? How do we understand it?
Yeah.
And I know that there's somebody out there that's going to listen to this episode and ask, is it legal?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure is.
it's an insurance policy, so
Yeah.
it is legal. But when we get into the weeds of finances like this, a lot of people, if they're not sure about it, if they're not
Mhm.
familiar with it, they can be like, is this actually legal? Yeah. Whole life policies, like go to any of the name brand financial institutions that you know of, and they have a whole life policy available. So do your research. Like,
Sure.
don't just take Thomas's word for it, but do your research and then figure out who has the best policy for what your needs are. And you seem to have a very special way of structuring these
Yeah.
policies that maybe others don't have access to. So that's the encouragement to the audience is go do your homework.
Sure.
Go go talk to Edward Jones, Northwest Mutual, all the places that you can think of that would potentially have a whole life policy and see what their terms are. Do your
Yeah.
homework.
The biggest question, Misty, is this. What is your goal? What is your goal? Is your goal to have a massive death benefit? I want to load money in there for a long time, but I don't really need access to this money. Infinite banking is probably not your thing.
Or it could be.
It could be. Okay, what is your goal? I want to have a place to store cash and I want to have access to that cash whenever I need it.
Mhm.
This is for you.
If
Who
you want to
doesn't?
become if you want to become your own bank.
If you want to create your own bank,
Hmm.
it is tailor made for you. And here's the thing. The question I get all the time, well, how much do I need? Well, I don't know. I don't, what are you doing?
Hmm.
So I'll give you a great example. There's a guy that we work with. He's got about an $800,000 HVAC business, not a huge business. He pays himself 60 grand a year. He lives here in Alabama. He's a great guy. He's young. He pays himself $60,000 a year. Well, he takes about between 40 and $50,000 a year from his business and puts into this policy. Number one, it
Hmm.
gives him he's going to take care of his family if something happened, God forbid. He's got 3 kids.
Hmm.
Number two, any expense. I mean, HVAC business, Misty, It's a it's an expensive business. You got trucks, you got equipment, you got tools, you got all that stuff. Where is he
You have
parking his?
staff.
You have staff.
Yeah.
Where is he parking his capital so that he can go buy a truck if his business starts to grow? Where is he going to park money if he needs to go buy said, or if he needs to say he does a commercial job and he's got to float 15 or $20,000 on a unit, and the school that he's doing the unit for is on a net 60. Where's he
Mm-hmm.
going to get the 20 grand to buy the unit, Misty? From his
Mm-hmm.
policy.
Mm-hmm.
So so you don't have to be a gazillionaire to do this. Here's where people get the question of, is this legal? The reason they don't know about it is because it's been only used for the wealthy for the last 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Rockefeller thing. This is a Rothschild thing. This is something that the wealthy use because they use it for the cash and to store cash. They also use it for legacy, Misty. They
Mm,
also
okay.
structure these policies to where when I die, the policy doesn't flood to my daughter or my son. The policy flows into the benefits, the death benefit flows into a trust.
Mm-hmm.
That money then goes to buy more policies so that they can create the banking system. Again, I've got a 17, a 14, and a 10-year-old. My kids will never have to use a bank.
Mm,
They will borrow from the family bank. Each one of them has a policy. We pay them through our business. They'll never have to go to a bank. Barring they don't, if they want to go buy a $20 million, you know, apartment complex, they may have to use a bank. But for buying houses and buying cars and starting businesses, they're going to come to the family bank.
mm,
They're not going to go to a bank. They're not going to have to go through underwriting. They're going to present the plan to the family and say, hey, this is what I think. This is the plan. Hey, this is the house I want to buy. Hey, this is the house I want to flip. Hey, this is the investment I want to make. Great. How are we going to pay the loan back? How are we going to do this? And we
mm-hmm.
and we go from there. They're using our money. We're saving on that interest that we would have been paying for another bank.
That's incredible. I did not come from a family that was structured that way financially. I came from
Yeah.
poverty. So uh, I think that's super cool that you're setting up your family that way. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Hmm. So if people want to get in touch with you and learn more, can they set up a time to talk with you?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you a link to for my calendar in there, but they can always go to thomascox.co. Our website's thomascox.co,
Hmm.
and you can get in touch with me there. One of the things that we do a lot for people is we try to explain as easy as we can what infinite banking is, what it's about. And I'm going to give you a link to it's called IBC, Infinite Banking Concept, IBC.money. And it's a three-part video series that's free for everybody just to look and see if it's even for them. And what it does, it walks through different steps of like, hey, this is what infinite banking is. It's a 101, a 201, and a little bit of a 301 level of just explaining everything in detail about how infinite banking works in the whole life insurance policy world.
Well, thank you for sharing that
Yeah,
offer with the audience so that they can go secretly check it out.
that's
And,
right.
if they're curious. So,
That's right.
a term that I coined recently is, are you exit curious or are you exit serious? And yeah, so I'm like, if people are whole life's curious, they can go secretly snoop around on your videos.
That's right. That's exactly right. Totally fine. Yeah, you're right.
Awesome, wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your financial knowledge, and your passion. Like it definitely comes through as you talk about it. I was hooked from our first conversation.
Oh,
So
good.
I'm
So
like,
glad. Thank you.
yes,
Yes, ma'am.
let's talk about this. So, hey, you guys, if you are interested in learning more from Thomas, please go snoop on his free videos or set up a time on his website to talk with him. And it doesn't hurt to ask questions.
Ask away.
Yeah. So, any closing words for the audience?
I think you did a really good job explaining. People need to be curious.
Hmm.
Okay. The hardest part about learning anything, Misty, is unlearning what you thought you knew.
Mic drop.
So don't be boxed in to what you've always been told.
Mm,
Explore different things. Talk to multiple people.
mm,
Ask the questions. Okay. So I know, and you do too. I know more than the average bear about just finance in general.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last story, and then we'll leave. I've got an investor that I met through a friend of a friend, who started investing in one of our roll ups. Great guy. Very, very matter of fact, very, very kind, very, very humble, very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And he invested another round in one of our roll ups. And I picked up the phone. I was like, hey, can you come over and sit with me and just let's eat lunch? I want to learn more about what you do and who you are. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
sure. Misty, he talked for 45 minutes. 85% of what he said went right over my head. And I was just like a third grader, just, just, just sitting there listening, asking him questions,
Mm-hmm.
just asking
Mm-hmm.
questions. I asked questions for 45 minutes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you got to get in a room with someone that knows more than you do. My old boss used to say, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you got to find another room.
Yes. And that's what my masterminds are for. It supports that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's somebody in that group that's thinking of that's someone out there listening right now that's thinking about, I think I do want to exit my company in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get in the room with Misty, with
Mm-hmm.
all the other people that are doing the same thing. The worst thing we can do is surround ourselves by people that always tell us yes. The
Mm-hmm.
worst thing we can do. We got to get in a room, in a space where someone across the table is making us better, where someone is 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 been where we want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can do that, and that's one of your like your mastermind, it's a great place to do that for people that are. I mean, at the worst, set up a call with Misty and see, is this even for you? I mean, am I right, Misty? At the worst,
At the the least, it's, hey, send me an email and say, I
that's
want to
it.
talk. I want to talk about the masterminds. Or
That's
you can
it.
just jump in. It's on my website. Just jump
Yeah.
in.
So,
So,
but yeah.
yeah, it is true. And it is scary because what you said, that mic drop moment where the hardest thing is to think differently.
It really is.
It is. And I can attest to that. I am a lifetime growth person, like internal personal growth, business growth, like all the things. And the most challenging part of it is giving myself permission to think differently, to show up differently, to
That's
become
right.
and evolve into a different person.
That's it.
That's the
Totally
scariest
right.
part.
It really, really is. It really is what happens is, and I know we're over time. What happens is we become vulnerable at that point, and no one likes to sit there and say, "I don't know what that means." Like, I
Mm,
don't understand that. What does that mean? Because you don't want to look like a moron. Because everybody wants to act like they have it together, but like it's okay. It's okay to sit there and say, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? I asked my kid that the other day. My kid, my 14-year-old son, he knows way more about hunting and fishing than I do.
mm-hmm,
So I just sit there and ask him, I was like, hey, what does it mean when they do this? Talking about like
mm-hmm,
deer, you
mm-hmm,
know? And he just starts explaining
mm-hmm.
what gives them confidence too. So sorry, I started rambling. But yeah,
No, you're
yeah,
good. It does. It requires vulnerability.
it
And
does.
in my masterminds, I always promote I don't know everything. I am great at what I do. I am an expert in my lane, but that's my lane. And I'm not going to
Hmm.
claim to know it all, which is why there's other geniuses in the room.
That's right. That's right.
And when I ask questions and I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm like, yeah, I might look stupid to you right now, but that's okay because I don't care.
That's
I
right.
want I want to know. I don't want to pretend and be a false human being and pretend like I know what you're talking about when I actually don't.
It's a very good word.
Right? So for me,
Yeah.
it's authenticity. I love to
Yeah.
be authentic and I have to ask questions in order to stay authentic.
That's right. Really good.
So, yes. Okay, you guys. We are over time, and that's okay. I think this was an important
Yep.
close, which is great. So, if you're interested in talking with Thomas, reach out to him, thomascox.co. We love you. You are a great audience, and keep your head up. I know these are tough times, so keep your head up. It'll get better, I promise. Love you guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the Wealthy Mind podcast. Please be sure to download the Wealthy Mind app today and make sure to support your local Dress for Success.